Coming up, we learn about policy agenda items for Native nations in Montana and Tlingit weavers. Plus, more reporting on Indigenous communities in South Dakota and Oklahoma is on the horizon. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is honored to be a supporter of Indian Country Today. ASU offers the only online undergraduate digital media literacy degree, teaching students how to recognize and combat inaccuracies on all platforms. They are using cutting-edge tools and tactics to separate fact from fiction in a digital world overloaded with misinformation. Learn more at cronkite.asu.edu.
Kuwatsi Hopa. Thank you for joining us. There are new efforts underway on the federal level to clean up old and abandoned wells. Last week, Interior Secretary Deb Haaland established a new office under her department to combat the years-long issue of orphaned wells. This has happened as the result of oil and gas wells that were never plugged up after being used. Some estimates show that there are over 120,000 of these sites across the United States. Experts say these sites are huge hazards because they can contaminate groundwater and emit toxic gases. Methane leaking from these wells is also a significant cause of climate change, and it can harm wildlife. The bipartisan infrastructure law has over $4.7 billion in funding to address this issue. Haaland has tapped Kimbra Davis to lead the newly established office, and her job will be to ensure these funds are successfully implemented for this cleanup. Over $150 million of that funding is earmarked to address the issue on tribal lands. Now to California, where a tribal nation is celebrating a land-back victory. Earlier this month, President Joe Biden signed a bill that returns 2,500 acres to the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians. The move came after decades of advocacy. California Congressman Raul Ruiz led the efforts by introducing legislation for the land located near the San Jacinto Mountains. Tribal Chairman Reed Milanovich told News Channel 3 the land has deep-rooted cultural and resourceful value to his tribe. Before this land return, tribal nations were unable to access their lands. Now, the tribes can manage and preserve village sites and petroglyphs in the area, and they can also continue conservation efforts and forest management. After 4 years, a decision has been made for the 3 Mi'kmaq citizens who were charged with fishing illegally in their traditional waters. Angel Moore from APTN reports.
Mike McDonald, the defense lawyer in the case, was happy with the dismissal, saying that the fact that the federal government has not made any changes to the Fisheries Act to include a 1999 Supreme Court decision on moderate livelihood meant that provincial judge Tim Landry had no choice but to dismiss the charges.
So basically, he dismissed the case because my clients did not break any laws. There's no laws for them to break. There's no laws that deal specifically with livelihood fishing. So you cannot be charged for something that if there's no law there in place in the first place. So
the case has been ongoing for 4 years. Logan Pierre Howe, James Wallace Nevin, and Leon Knockwood of the Sabaganagati First Nation were harvesting lobster under their band's moderate livelihood fishery when they were charged for violating the Fisheries Act. Judge Landry said in court that the Crown did not prove that fishing for ceremonial purposes is the only authorized use of the fishery. McDonald says it is still a win for the Mi'kmaq.
You cannot charge someone for fishing livelihood fishing because there's nothing there. There's no guidance for DFO, and that falls on Parliament. So everything that they did was outside the law. Everything that DFO did was outside the law. It was an infringement of our First Nations rights, our rights to a moderate livelihood.
McDonald is bringing action against the Department of Fisheries and the federal government, including negligence, racial profiling, and infringement of treaty rights. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Chibuktuk, known as Halifax.
Well, a Native-run tech organization is accusing a software company of cultural appropriation. The nonprofit Natives in Tech is urging the company Apache Software Foundation to change its name due to what they call its offensive nature. Natives in Tech called upon ASF to change its name out of respect for Indigenous people and to live up to its own code of conduct instead of appropriating Native culture for branding purposes. Co-founder of ASF, Brian Benledorf, stated the Apache name comes out of admiration for Native people. Natives in Tech responded, saying the name is as ignorant as it is offensive. The organization added that the name creates further distance for Indigenous people from modern technology. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Lawmakers sprung into action on January 2nd in Montana for the start of the state's 4-month legislative session. It is a time for legislators to pass laws on behalf of their constituents, and already some groups are presenting their goals for the convening. That includes from Western Native Voice, a nonpartisan social justice organization who advocates on behalf of the state's Indigenous population, which is around 7%. Joining us today is Tajin Perez, the Deputy Director of the organization. Tajin, hello to you.
Hi, thanks, Leah.
So let's start off with your organization's 2023 legislative agenda. How was it created?
Our legislative agenda is created through consultation with our members. We are a member-driven organization here in Montana, and it's also clued in by stakeholders in communities, tribal individuals, government officials, as well as the work that we've done historically on voting rights.
Let's actually talk more about voting rights, because I understand that's one of the priorities this year. What exactly are you calling on lawmakers to do?
We're calling lawmakers to, of course, address the barriers to access, particularly in rural reservation areas, talking about streamlining the process of voter registration and ensuring that the services are located in a location more accessible to folks in these rural areas where distance is a major barrier, not only in voter registration, but also in casting a ballot.
One of the other parts about your legislative agenda that stuck out to me was what you're hoping to do in regards to stereotypes of Native people. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. This is something that our efforts have, since I've been with this organization and since the creation of this organization, have really cared about, not just in the public discourse, but particularly in the way that legislators, as representatives of their communities and representatives of the entire state, frame and talk about Indigenous people and their issues. And so some of your viewers may be aware that in Montana, there was a recent stirrings on a joint resolution that was talked about, hasn't been introduced yet, but to urge the Congress, the United States Congress, to revisit the reservation system. And so this is based off of ignorance. This is based on outdated stereotypes and harmful stereotypes that have no place in modern discourse, and particularly in modern policy discourse.
That representative who actually said he wanted to investigate tribal reservations in Montana, what has been the reaction from Native leaders in the state to his statements?
The reaction has been very unified in condemnation of not just the effort, but the rhetoric that's sort of part and parcel with it, and the foundational misconceptions and prejudices that have informed that kind of effort and opinion broadly. So, our organization, as well as others, have condemned this action, and we would continue in the strongest terms possible. And so, thankfully, it has not gained any traction as officially introduced. And so we hope that the public outcry has been enough to quell this kind of ignorant policy making.
It has actually been a few weeks now since legislators have been in session. So far, aside from this incident, of course, what has stood out to you the most?
What stood out to most is the sheer amount of bill drafts related to voting rights and attempts to restrict voting access. And I think that is the theme of not just the last legislative session that happened 2 years ago, but also this one. And so considering that our organization was involved in a legal battle on not just once, but twice within the last few years, that is what the legislature is attempting once again is doing that. And then also just the kind of the tone that we're seeing here with the supermajority, the Republican supermajority taking aim at the foundational document of our Constitution here in the state. And so those are some things that are particularly noteworthy this time around.
I want to talk about projections. If we were looking at the end of the legislative term, as you just mentioned, there being a Republican supermajority in the state, what legislation do you think has a real chance of passing and being signed into law?
Well, I think the major bits, of course, are the budget. So here in Montana, we have a mandate of a balanced budget, and so House Bill 2, which is our appropriations bill, will need to be passed. The question will be how much of that will include Indigenous people, and then also the question of what to do with our state surplus. And so our position is to ensure that services, particularly to health, both body health care as well as mental health care, are addressed, particularly in rural areas, including rural reservation areas. And so we're hoping for a good budget that is cognizant of the challenges that are faced, not just by rural reservation communities, but also our urban Native population, as well as the rest of Montana.
Well, Tajin Perez from Western Native Voice, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
In the mid-1980s, Jennie Thlunaut, the last master Chilkat weaver for the Tlingit people, died. Her final apprentice was Clarissa Rizal. Clarissa has since passed away as well, but her daughter continues to teach this traditional knowledge to a whole new generation of weavers. Patty Talahongva spoke to Lily Hope about being a teacher of Tlingit weaving.
There are two types of ceremonial textile weaving that Lily Hope teaches, and she joins us now to tell us about Raven's Tail and Chilkat. Welcome, Lily.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
Well, and you seem to weave constantly. So tell us first, what are you weaving right now?
I'm working on a pair of classic petite Lily Hope Weaver earrings. I released a collection and hadn't woven them yet, so I am playing catch up after the holidays. But whenever I'm sitting around, my hands are moving, very much like my mother, Clarissa Rizal, was.
And you mentioned your mother, Clarissa, who was well renowned for her weaving and her style. Tell me, how did she pass that on to you, that love of weaving?
She was really sneaky. I just wanted to spend time with her, so she would say, "Hey, come stir this dye pot," or "Hey, you want to learn how to, split some cedar bark?" Or "Look at how fun it is to spin the cedar into the merino wool." And I spun thousands of yards of the warp itself, like the stuff that hangs down in the textiles. Thousands of yards. I even spun 1,000 yards for Evelyn Vanderhoop's first Chilkat blanket, which I didn't know until we ran into each other at a show, and she said, "Hey, did you know that you spun this in 1995?" And I was like, "No way." So that's a good origin story. I didn't ever intend to be a weaver. My mother kept inviting me to these things, and then she'd say, "Oh, I'm going to teach this workshop." And she said, "You're going to come and teach it with me." And I said, "I don't weave Chilkat. What do I do?" And she says, "You just copy whatever I say, and then you're going to do it 10 more times over with all the other students." And that turned out to be true. And I got hooked on weaving curves and circles and being in community with people who were, excited about this work.
And this type of weaving that's specific to the Tlingit people and others, in the 80s, it was almost lost. How did your mother end up learning how to weave in this fashion?
In 1985, the last master Chilkat weaver, Jennie Thlunaut, out of Klukwan, Haines, Alaska, she offered a workshop to over a dozen women outside of her own family lineage. My mother was one of those people. And during that workshop, she did ask Jennie, she was like, well, can I be your apprentice? Can I weave with you like a long time? And Jennie never answered her during that workshop. But a full year later, Jennie's daughter has my mother on the phone and says, Jennie is getting on a ferry. Can you start a 6-week apprenticeship tomorrow? And my mother is scrambling around going, how do I rearrange my life? And my dad, Bill Hudson, said, I will take care of all the things. This is a once in a lifetime thing. Jennie was late in her years, and my mother was distinguished to be the last student of Jennie's to work on a project from start to finish, from spinning the warp to tying the last lines. And during that apprenticeship, Jennie would like nudge my mother and say, you're it. And she didn't know, my mother didn't know what that meant until a month later, Jennie died. And like, that really was it. Just gives me chills that was, so she passed on that technological and spiritual knowledge to myself and many other students before she passed. Clarissa passed in 2016. And really, I didn't have the intention of being a weaver, right? I love acting and connecting with humans and storytelling and theatrical performance. But when my mom died, I was this close to a master's in teaching, and I had a couple different foundations, institutions reach out to me and say, hey, do you want to teach a Chilkat workshop? Do you have skills? Do you want to share this knowledge? And I was like, I was never supposed to be an elementary school teacher. I was supposed to be a weaving teacher. So that's my probably 50-60% of my income comes from teaching Chilkat and Raven's Tail techniques.
And you have a big project coming up that's actually already completed, but 2023 holds a really big event for you.
We have been working since October of 2021. I've been holding space for weavers every single Sunday afternoon for 3 hours. Patreon Zoom. So through Patreon, people subscribe. We get to weave together on any project that we're working on. And in October of 14 months ago, we started spinning yellow cedar and merino wool together for warp because we need spinners. So each of us had to spin our own 300 yards. We warped up our looms together, and we started child-sized Chilkat dancing blankets, 30 to 32 inches, which as the child grows, they become dance aprons. But the most important part about these 22, 24 students is that they are working on the spiritual and technical mastery of Chilkat ceremonial regalia, full size, right? So for adults, we can weave our clan crests, we can weave our history, we can weave our stories. And in any point in the last 150 years, there have been fewer than a dozen Chilkat blanket makers. So we're more than doubling this number. Opening a show on February 3rd at the Juneau Douglas City Museum here in Juneau, Alaska. And a couple days before that, we're going to do a first dance event with Sea Alaska Heritage Institute. There's a Tlingit language literacy kindergarten first grade class that's going to come and be robed with all these new blankets and hoop-ha and dance them to life. We're hopeful that we get to give a commemorative photograph to the parents of that child and the weaver himself, either or. And I don't know, it feels so good to be part of helping this history move into the present.
Wow, it sounds amazing. Well, Lily, hope as you continue your weaving, we're going to follow your career and catch up with you later on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
South Dakota and Oklahoma are just a few states around the country where ICT wants to beef up coverage of Native communities. Earlier this month, ICT announced a significant partnership with the media company Lee Enterprises for some new reporters at the Rapid City Journal and the Tulsa World. So what does this all mean? ICT editor Jordan Bennett Begay is with us now virtually. Hi there, Jordan.
Hi, Leah.
How did these conversations with Lee Enterprises begin?
I mean, I think about any partnership, you just kind of reach out and, just start the conversation and see what type of collaboration there could be. Usually we reach out. In this case, we reached out to David McCumber and just talked about, the coverage they're doing because, they have Lee Enterprises is one of the largest independent newspaper chains across the nation. And they really have a footprint in a lot of where Indigenous communities are located and where ICT needs to be. And so we already admired, all the coverage that they're doing and just told them about the different types of partnership models we have. And this one spoke to it and we decided to just run with it. And here we are.
Talking about where ICT needs to be, what are some of the big stories coming from the state of South Dakota that you see this reporter covering?
This reporter, there's a lot of contentious relationships with the governor, Governor Noem up there and the tribes, and a lot of the policies going through. There's also, last year I can think of a couple of times with where we needed a reporter. Because a story came up, for example, over the holiday season, the Dakota 38-2 Memorial Ride. We're looking for a reporter somewhere, a freelance reporter. So that's one example. We could have used somebody. Holland, was going on her tour across the country, and at times like they would announce where she would go a few days in advance. And so those are, just instances where we need somebody when there's breaking news.
And let's actually talk about Oklahoma, because I think so often on the newscast, we're thinking, oh, we should send a reporter to Oklahoma for this story. But what stories stand out to you in that regard?
That's a really good question. I think in this time, we just got done with the midterm election, so we're watching a lot of the state legislature there, the governor, of course, and also the new senator, and seeing, what type of moves they're going to make. And this was especially going into a presidential year next year. So a lot of the policies and, politics we're watching on that end. And, outside of that, there's the, implementation of the Supreme Court's ruling on Roe versus Wade, and seeing how tribes and also Indigenous members, how they're going to navigate that decision in their communities. And Oklahoma is just a place where there's more than 24 tribes. It is Indigenous territory. So we always need somebody there. And it's also going to be a place in these two states where we can also recruit, students and show them that there's a career path for them here at ICT.
I want to talk about logistically what a shared reporter does, or what their day looks like in terms of kind of being hired by two organizations. Tell us about that.
Sure. We already have one partnership that is similar to this, and that is with our partners _news media in Portland, Oregon. So essentially this partnership, we go into it 50-50. We have like equal marbles in the game. We split the cost of the reporters, their salaries, the benefits, their equipment, and we want the reporter on the ground. So we ask if we can use our office space, and they can go on their payroll or our payroll. But we have try to be equal partners in this, and also have editors have significant input in these stories, because that's essentially what it is you're changing the narrative overall. And not only you have to have an Indigenous reporter, but Indigenous editors who can lead that coverage, and where our partners can learn, what is a story to us, what is a story to, Indigenous communities, what matters to them. And it's these complex and nuanced stories that we want to share.
Jordan, for people listening to this interview and are thinking, hey, maybe I should apply for that, where can they find more information?
Here, so these two jobs are listed on, we have a press release out right now, and it's in our press pool at ictnews.org. And also Lee Enterprises and that has links to the links where interested applicants can apply to Lee Enterprises, because that's where we decided that they should apply there.
Jordan, in case I'm forgetting anything, are there any last tidbits about both of these jobs that we should mention before we end today?
I think it's really important that people know that, like I said, Lee Enterprises is, one of the largest newspaper chains in the country. And so to step into this partnership with them, it's really remarkable for us. We're really thrilled and just excited, and to have, reporters in places that we need people to cover, big stories. That's a huge part of, I guess, the news desert that we've been having since ICT Revival. So we're really excited.
Well, Jordan Bennett Begay, the editor of ICT, thank you for telling us about the new jobs that we're looking for in South Dakota and Oklahoma. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
The Sand Creek Massacre, the betrayal that changed Cheyenne and Arapaho people forever, focuses on tribal accounts of Colorado's deadliest day. Exhibition details at historycoloradocenter.org.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.